Hey guys, what's up? I wanted to take a couple minutes today to show you a game called Down in Flames by DVG Games. And I haven't played this game in quite a while, but it is definitely worth a mention. I have a lot of fun memories with this game, in particular with my son. I use this game to kind of get him off of the Pokemon and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Crazy stuff like that, and more into historical gaming. And nowadays he's open to a lot more things, and we have a lot of fun. But with this game in particular, it's a completely card-driven game, so there is no dice rolling or heavy charts or any chart work really whatsoever. But there is a little bit of counter work, and there's included counters and tokens with the two core sets down in front of you. But like I said, it's light work on the counter, so it's a good way to introduce a new wargamer or younger people into counter tracking stuff like that. So down there in front of you, you do have the two core sets, and the one on the left is Guns Blazing, the one on the right is Aces High. I do have the expansion pack, Wingman expansion, over there on the far left, and that's going to add a different aspect to the game as well, and I'll talk about that here in a couple minutes. But basically, like I said, this game is 100% card driven, so it's very easy to learn and quick to play, and there's multiple different methods and variants you can do the game in, whether it's a one-on-one dogfight, two-on-one dogfight, uh, multiplayer, you can do campaign missions. So there's a lot of stuff, bombers included, bombers flying in formation, a whole lot of different things. But we're going to take a look at the contents of all of these items down in front of us. And the first one is that we're going to take a look at is the Aces High series, because that's the first one that I bought. And inside, you're going to find a campaign sheet, and you may want to make copies of that like I did. And when you play campaigns, this will allow you to track the status of everything, the allies, the axis, victory, everything else. So that's that. It's a very simple sheet, and everything can be kept track of on that. Then you're going to have the instruction manual, and the instruction book is in full color, as you can see. It's very nicely done. It's a little flimsy, but you shouldn't have to spend too much time in it. The instructions are pretty easy to learn here. So as a matter of fact, you don't even really need to look in there too extensively because I'll explain a little bit of the game. But then you're going to have campaign sheets, and in the Aces High series, you're going to have the Guadalcanal campaign and the Battle of Britain. And in these, it shows you where you can launch attacks from and to, and what between what locations, and it'll also tell you what kind of aircraft you have for the campaign and what you can take on the missions and everything else, as well as options and victory conditions up here in the corners, and a short description of the campaign itself. So after that set of campaigns, you're going to have Daylight Bombing, which is the Allied campaign over France and Germany. And then you'll have the Battle of Midway campaign, as well as early war Poland, 1939, and the Battle of Stalingrad. So covers a wide variety of campaigns there, and it does include a lot of different aircraft, all the aircraft needed to fly in those campaigns. Actually, right here I have the counters, and I'm only going to show you the counters from this one set because they're both pretty much the same. But here you have counters to track hits and damage on your aircraft. And then right here you have two sets of counters, one for Axis, one for allies, and those will let you keep track of who has acted and who still has to take a turn. And then you have counters right here, numbered allied counters and numbered access counters, and those let you differentiate between your aircraft. So you put one of those, and that's aircraft 1, aircraft 2, aircraft 3, and you assign those to the decks of your aircraft, etc. You have altitude markers. I had to divide those in 2 slots for ease of finding. And then we have some more, what are those? Oh, some objectives, allied destroyed, axis destroyed markers for the campaign games. Then you have special pilots for each nation. And there is the major access, major allies, and there's a lot of the minor powers in there as well. So you have a few of the pilots for the minor powers like Poland and Italy and other places like that. So then you have, bombing course patterns and turn markers and not much else. Like I said, it's a pretty light counter game. Most of the time, if you're messing with a counter, it's going to be for damage or altitude change or to flip the acted and not acted markers. That's the extent of it, pretty much. There's a little bit more than that, like I said, but for the most part, that's it. Um, and then the included cards, we'll go over these cards in both of these core sets. You're going to have an action deck, which players will draw their hand from, and each aircraft will have their own hand. And they're pretty much the same. They have different artwork in between the two sets, but there's things like Red Line, and that's a tactic. You can play it at any time, and this aircraft suffers one hit and then draws 3 cards. So the 3 cards are, the more maneuverable, or excuse me, the more performance value you have on an aircraft, the larger hand you're going to have, the more options that aircraft is going to have. And certain aircraft can, like for instance, a zero can turn any card into a scissors maneuver. So there's aircraft like that have special abilities as well. So then you have in my sights, and these are how you'll attack. This in my sights card in particular, it costs an aircraft 2 bursts. So, and it'll score 2 hits on a target. Some score a different amount of hits and are more rare card draws out of the deck, etc. But, um, excuse me, an aircraft can only play this card if it has a rating of 2 bursts or more. And some aircrafts have 0 bursts. So how do you play that? Well, you have to maneuver into a better spot. If you maneuver into a side angled approaching angle, that's worth 1 burst. And if you're tailing them, that's worth 3 bursts. So just from tailing them, you're going to have enough bursts to open up on them with this and still have one left. Um, and then you're going to have a tight turn. And also, when somebody plays a card, let's say if I play an in my sights attack card on you, I lay it down on the table. If you have this card in your hand in my sights, you can lay that down and say I'm tight. I'm using a tight turn, and that's going to counter my in my sights. But if I have a card that can counter tight turn in my hand, I can put that down. And then if you don't have that card that can counter that, then the original card will stand, which was the in my sights, and I'll score the 2 hits. So that's a very, very brief introduction of how the gameplay works and in the card-driven system. It's smooth, it's fast, and like I said, my kid dug this game, and there was a couple times when he approached me and asked me, "Hey, Dad, you want to play Down in Flames?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, man." So we busted them out, and we've done quite a few of the campaigns actually, and had a lot of fun. But there is another set of cards there, and it just goes through the different. I'll go back to them because I didn't show you all of them, but and these are also well shuffled, so there's no particular order. But there's in Out of the Sun, which is another attack target. It's harder to counter than In My Sights card. Yo-yo, and you can play this before an attack card, and this will add 1 hit. So you can play a low burst attack card plus this, and it'll score an extra hit with it. And you can use this to also react to certain cards: scissors, barrel roll, yo-yo, tight turn, and vertical roll. So it's a high action, fast paced game. And like here's the scissors card. A zero can always turn any card and change position from disadvantage to advantage. So you can't work with anything if you're being tailed, but if you're at disadvantage, meaning there's an aircraft approaching you from perpendicular, then he can switch that from disadvantaged to advantaged, which is advantage on his perpendicular on his opponent. I'll give you a little bit of examples here soon, but and then you're going to have a whole lot of aircraft. Those are the damage sides. But, you got your Spitfires. You have a wide variety of aircraft. Right now, we're looking at British Commonwealth. It looks like Spitfires, Hurricanes, Mosquitoes. And they're all going to have performance rating, which is the size of the hand that this aircraft will start off with and the maximum size of its hand. So it's two different things. The horsepower, pre-turn horsepower and post-turn horsepower. The pre-turn horsepower is how many cards you draw before you start its actions during that turn. and the post-turn horsepower is how many turns you draw after, or excuse me, how many cards you draw after that aircraft has taken its actions. The speed is used in pre-combat maneuvering before you draw cards, and also to counter that pre-combat maneuvering. And the firepower right here in the upper right, the +2, is going to add bonus to the damage and hits and everything else. So then we'll have the newer, heavier Spitfire 5, and you can see that goes up in rating. And down here in the empty box, some aircraft will tell you if it has superchargers or whatever special items it may have. And on the lower right, 12 VP, that's how much acquisition points basically that it'll cost for you to purchase that aircraft. There's Hurricane 2Cs, more Spitfires there, and you can see this one's getting up into 8 performance with turbocharger and 2 bombs, 20 victory point cost. And there's, the old Swordfish. I believe this is what sunk the Bismarck, if I'm not mistaken. I could be incorrect, but I think so. Possibly, maybe incorrect on that. I don't know. There's some Polish biplanes in there. Excuse me. And this is a bomber. So a lot you may be more familiar with the heavier bombers, but this is a Polish light bomber, and they have a turret defense and turret support. So you won't draw cards with these aircraft. They won't hold, or excuse me, you won't hold a hand with these aircraft. But when they are attacked, then you will draw one in defense. And if they're flying in support, if you have another air bomber in formation with these, you can draw turret support cards, one extra for each card, and then you can play cards from out of the hand of that bomber. And but obviously that's an early war Polish bomber, so if you get into the B-25s, you're going to have a much greater turret defense and turret support, better speed, much more bomb payload capacity. And they also rank the size of the bombers as well. B-25C Mitchell costs 11 victory points. And I did forget to mention up in the upper right is how much damage it can take. Once it sustains 6 damage, you would flip it over and it would go down to its damage statistics, which are much lower. And then once you total the damage in the upper right, that aircraft would be destroyed. And it doesn't reset. So once you flip it, you still have 6 damage. So you'd only have 4 more to go before it's shot down. 4 damage can go pretty quick with a bomber. Either way, I've had large B-17 formations, well, as large as I could have against my son, and I've had him pull out, out of sun cards and stuff, the special ones that destroy an aircraft regardless of damage sustained or whatever, and not had a counter for it, and lost, B-17s in the very, very first turn of the game. So, like I said, it's fast playing, it's very fun, and you really get the excitement maybe of, just the amount of maneuvering and quickness and ferocity of the combat of World War II. It's entertaining. It's not a lot of detail, but it's a card driven game. So if you're into the card stuff, it's one of the more fun ones. I'd definitely say that. And it's there's not a lot of different sets. You can do it pretty much with these 3 sets, and they're reasonably priced. So there's you're not going to break the bank here trying to buy a whole bunch of different expansions and everything else. But in the other deck of aircraft in this set, you'll have more of the same, which is the Zeros and the Nates. These are a lot of the Japanese aircraft. Oscar, Tony, Jack, Randy, Val, Kate, Betty, and then some German jets right here. The jets are going to be much, much faster with their speed and performance and stuff. They also cost a lot more, 25 victory points. Got your FW-190s, one of my particularly fond aircraft, BF-109s, BF-109Fs and Gs, BF-110Cs, 109Ks, ME-410s, HE-111. Those are 17Z, Stukas, of course. Then a lot of Russian aircraft. So a lot of Yaks, LAs, stuff like that. and some lease and loan P39s. And yeah, that about does it. I don't want to drag this video out, so now we'll go ahead and just take a look at the contents of this one. Like I said, we won't look at the counters because they're pretty much the same. But this one will also come with a rule book, and it's pretty familiar. It's almost the same thing, and that's cool between the two games. You don't need to learn much of anything different, actually. This one, Guns Blazing, its campaign sheets are going to be very, very hard, stiff cardboard, actually. They're not even cardstock, but they're only singly sided, unfortunately. But they have some of my favorite campaigns in theaters. Let me get this focus back in, hopefully. There we go. And this one is for Malta, and that's obviously going to be in the Mediterranean. And you're going to have another Mediterranean campaign, which is the Italian North African campaign. And you will also have the France 1940 campaign in there as well. So there's some early war France in there. And then you'll have the Japanese campaign, and this is, I've never played this one, but this is maybe possibly semi-theoretical. I don't know. I haven't taken a look there. And then you have Germany 1945. And you have the East Front there, another East Front. The first in the Aces High was Stalingrad. This covers a more broad scope of the Eastern Front there. You can see the sizes, I think, are larger there, but we haven't played too much of this. Only one of the campaigns. It was the Italian North Africa campaign. I'm fond of that theater of war there. So, but just take it. Like I said, the artwork on these is different. You can see there on that red line card, it's an Italian MC, I think. I can't remember the model, but that artwork on those cards are going to be different. But you'll have, Allied cards. Here's some more British Commonwealth, and some of them are the same. Some of them are new aircraft because obviously they took place in different time frames. But it's all the same. How the game works, the information on the cards. There's some P-38s, P-47 Thunderbolts, some more Corsairs. The good thing about having both games is when you have multiple B-25s, multiple B-29s, 26s, whatever, 17s especially, you can combine them out of both games and have much larger formations of bombers. So it is beneficial to own both games, especially if you don't own many games and you really play a lot of the ones you do own. Then I definitely recommend owning a lot of them. This is the Wingman expansion right here. And I would recommend this if you're interested in fielding larger battles without the necessary requirement of having hands for each aircraft. Because what this does is it basically turns fighter cards into the bomber card statistic. It has attack and defense draws. So, and it also marks them as wingmen. Excuse me. So let's say if I had two of these guys already out on the board, and I had a hand for both of them, and they were the regular ones from those games with the performance values, the burst ratings, everything else. Let's say I wanted to have two more, but I didn't want to sit there and have four hands of cards, for four aircraft. Well, I could put two more of these Wingman Gladiator down, and then one of them could stick with each aircraft as its wingman, and then these guys don't need to hold hands. They can draw when they're either just attacking, they'll draw two cards, or if they're being attacked, they'll draw one card. So, this is very beneficial for increasing the size of your air battles and keeping the game simple. So even if you wanted to do a two aircraft on two aircraft dogfight with you and one other player, and you only wanted to have one hand each player, then this is another easy way to do it. Because if I wanted to have two P-47 Mustangs and you wanted to have two Spitfires, and you only wanted to have one hand, you could put this one down, and this guy doesn't need to have a hand. So you're simplifying the game and increasing the size of it at the same time. So it's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful add-on. I would highly recommend it even if you only get one of the core sets. If you do only get one, Oh, it's hard to say. I love the Pacific Theater out of here, and I love this one. I love the African campaign out of here. I love the quality of the maps. Man, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say. Maybe if I do a highlight in a video or something, I'll talk about that more. But that's really hard to say. But I will say, if you only get one of them, definitely get the Wingman expansion. But this game is a lot of fun. I'll go into a rules explanation maybe here in the future, but it's really simple to learn. If you're interested in aircraft, you can pick it up quick without me having to tell you how to do it. I promise you. I promise you. Anyway, you guys stay safe. I'll see you later.